Good morning and welcome to Judging by the Cover, the gaming review show where I rate games that I have not played and I score them based on those store pages. Now, I know that it has been a bit of a busy month with everything going on, but I did want to go ahead and address that we are still in Pride Month. So, happy Pride to all of you who are among that community, who are living your lives, going through. And I wanted to go ahead and shout that out there while we go ahead and look at this week's game, Paralives. Now, this game is actually a very recent release into early access that came out May 25th. So it's only been out for about a month, but it does seem like the developers are pretty active and with the community in having their game be a representation of not just Pride, but life in general, letting you go into this town with whatever kind of character you want to do, or you can load up, it looks like you may be able to load up some presets to go ahead and just kind of start a life and see how the characters' relationships play out, while also helping to make selections as the player for that. Uh, on the surface, it very much gives me the kind of vibes. It gives me some vibes of Sims, Animal Crossing, or Tomodachi Life, um, but not in the way that is like blatantly, strictly of those sets. They do seem to do quite a bit to emphasize the interpersonal connections between the characters, especially your main player character that you are playing as, with all the choices that you can make as far as not only building and designing your house, but managing their job, their daily activities. Like you are going through their day to day life. They do show in one of the trailers basically the day in the life of one of these characters. And we're going to go ahead and discuss that in a minute here as we go into these trailers. Now, again, this is early access. So I do have a little bit of a tempered expectation, but of course, some of that will feed into how we rationalize and think about the pricing and where they're at and where they're going. So, starting off with the trailers, they do tell us they do have two separate kind of precursor trailers. One of them seems to be a release trailer, the other's an announcement trailer of sorts towards the end of everything, where they just show small snippets of these, kind of getting you into the vibe of what you're doing. And as far as the advertising for it goes, this makes sense. The way that they set this up with the release trailer, with a lot of information and detail, or not information, but a lot of detail going into the character creation. For people that like games with that character creation, you have so many options there between the clothes, your character's looks, personality, sliders, and everything to go ahead and make all kinds of systems with that. Like you can make yourself how you look in the real life. You can make yourself look how you want to look if you want to play as something else. And you even have these, like, it shows the interpersonal relationships, making the selections, but then also showing that the NPCs have their own personalities and their own reactions to what you do. They're not just feeding into whatever choice you want to make. There is a chance that they will reject your choices, or your like if you're coming onto them, they may reject you for that, which might not feel the best as a player, but for the sake of what they're doing, being kind of an interpersonal relationship thing where you're navigating the ins and outs of these actual human connections, even though it is simulated, it's kind of cool that way. They do have so much going on here, showing your character having to clean up after themselves or even clean up after other people. The second excuse me, the second trailer is an almost 9-minute presentation with two narrators that basically take on the role of these these kind of announcer personalities that act as a kind of guiding force behind the computer of the game, where one says that they're basically in charge of, spicing up the experience, and the other is in charge of like the stability of it. They do have this whole lead in, which again, this feels very reminiscent of Animal Crossing, where you're on a train choosing or creating your character. on that train to go ahead and enter the town and start this life. They do show very briefly this thing where you go through and you can select one of these pre-made sets of characters, or you go into the character creation, and they do go ahead and make a couple of characters that'll end up being roommates that they go into a lot of detail about their dynamics and how each of them operates. One of them, not maybe not a neat freak, but one of them is pretty neat and tidy. The other one is definitely a slob who will leave things to be picked up by other people. They do show a brief snippet of, like, a very brief snippet. They basically only show us maybe the first in-game day of actual playtime, but in that day, they do show us that that you get selections for career progression, skill progression that relates to the character's personality, where you make choices in how the perks and effects of those personality things will carry on. Now, all of that does show that they put a lot of emphasis and focus into kind of RPGifying basic human personality in a way, and kind of gamifying it in a little bit. They do show the house situation here, where you go and custom build your house with all kinds of options. You can set the walls to a grid or free form it, and they do tell us that the developers do not yet have windows on curved walls, but that makes it sound like that is something they want to implement. You customize the size, the shape of the windows, the furniture, the landscape. You basically get free reign for all of this terraforming to create your dream house. And I feel like this kind of thing could take a long time. And honestly, for people who like to play games as designers, this is right up your alley. I do kind of hope, however, that there may be some preset options for these things in case you want to just kind of jump into it and start living a character life, because this kind of thing looks like having to go in and design multiple rooms with all this furniture looks like it could take an incredibly long time, and this is all happening before you even play that first in-game day. But again, that is not a bad thing. I do hope that they, like I said, that they have the option for that. We are going to go ahead and skip ahead a little bit. Let's take a look at the screenshots, and we will eventually get to that last trailer. We see screenshots showing the straight up highway. Like, it even looks like a US highway sign here: East, Downtown, North Beach. But they do show some shots of the town, some shots of activity here. We've got these workout activities. We do see a little bit of the character dynamic here, where you can kind of guide and direct what direction you want the characters or not personalities, the characters' relationships to take, where you can either keep it completely platonic, ask for training tips, or if you want to romance the character, you can aim for the flirt. But it tells you right there you have a 25% chance of success. That's where it goes into a little roller. Now, maybe the randomization isn't exactly how it would work in real life, but when you're making a video game out of something, sometimes you got to have some kind of a factor in there for that. And they do show also develops a secret crush, where maybe you don't broadcast that you're interested, but to see that that is an option where you can go ahead and just kind of like hold it inside and be like, yeah, that's how my character is going to react to the situation. And maybe you slowly try to build that connection before you jump into the risky flirt, so that you can maybe flirt with them later after you build that more of a connection. Because we do see in the trailer what happened, like a little bit of the interaction when there's a rejection going on. They do show more of the town here. In one of the trailers, they also show you walking into a shop. You can go ahead and do the shopping right there. More character interactions here. This looks like a straight up wedding scene right here, which quite frankly, it looks good. It looks adorable, and it does genuinely look good. Like, this is a cool interaction here where you have this photo. This is the kind of thing I would even expect to see in real life with this kind of thing, how you could kind of simulate these experiences. We have one of the player characters here going in. Or is this one of the player characters? Okay, yeah, it appears to be the case. But you go in selecting your tastes, your abilities, jack of all trades, music, fitness, basically where you're going to be. Okay, I see what they're doing here. This is the character creation where you are picking your talent. So vibe, social perk, and talent are all like parts of that customization, along with some little, it looks like, oh, and the way that they're showing this in the menu to kind of communicate here, this is going to be huge bonus points when we're considering the user interface for this game and how easy it is, how well it's laid out, and how easy it is to understand what you're looking at on the screen. So now that I'm looking at this a little more, I do see at the top here they show physique, mind, creativity, and charisma, where it looks like that this line is probably just kind of like a baseline of where you're at there. And where that first check mark is probably like, okay, you're not a complete weakling in this. Like if you have nothing in the mind, your character's probably a little bit of an idiot, a little thick-headed. Low creativity probably speaks for itself a little bit. Charisma, you're not a people person, but this one they shows low physique on this one. So I'm guessing that Anissa in this case is probably not only just not physically fit, but maybe like physically a little weak. But then if you were to mark it up that first mark, that kind of gives me the message that the character would be, at least passable. Like they're not going to get winded just by walking up a flight of stairs or something. And if then of course the higher you go into that, the better they are, the more athletic. But the serious vibe, the good at taking care of others, so very personable. And then talent, the player character here is picking the talent, or you can be good at nothing apparently if you want to go that route. Now, mechanically speaking, I don't see that being a very good option. But since games like this is not always about making the optimal choice, I could see it being more about making the interesting choice. Maybe if you're good at nothing but you're also not a jack of all trades, you're just kind of like flitting about going through life just to see like how things play out with that dynamic. Moving on to our next one here, we do see a couple with a family. And this right here is showing that, they do have not only the base romantic options, but bringing up the family, going about that home and dynamic with raising the kids and everything. It's it's no wonder that this got a showcase in the I believe this did get a showcase in that wholesome direct that we had reviewed earlier in the month. And quite frankly, yeah, it looks well deserved for that, just based on this little bit of screenshots and everything that we have going on. Then they do have one more trailer here, which is basically kind of like, it seems like a little bit of a pre-release trailer, the anticipation trailer. Again, some of the same stuff. They're showing the town. Now, the town does appear to be kind of a preset of an open world sandbox of a town where you're not going to be able to customize a whole lot of the town itself, but the characters and the interactions in there is really going to feed into this dynamic. Now we're going to go ahead and skip ahead down to the description. I know I kind of went off a little bit and didn't go through the entirety of the trailers, but that's because I didn't want to sit here and watch the trailers in silence with you guys. I do highly recommend checking the trailers yourselves, and if you happen to be listening to this without watching the video, then also make a point of it to check out the Steam page if these kinds of games are your thing, and at least look at the trailers and screenshots to see what it has to offer here. Now, it is in early access. That is something we're going to go ahead and keep in mind here. Now there are also a lot of bundles for this available. Now the unpacking bundle on my screen, it says the $35.99. That's because I did go and purchase unpacking after I reviewed that game. I believe the actual price for them together was about 50, was it $54? I think it was roughly $54. But the base game is at $39.99, so $40 for the base game. If you already have unpacking like I do, you are still getting the discount price. It's just that unpacking is removed from the bundle and you're getting that $4 off. So they are offering discounts if you get it bundled with another game. If any of these other games like the House Flipper 2 or Outbound or Dwarf Fortress, if any of those are up your alley, you have those options to go ahead and get something together. They have already sold 1 million copies. They're even thinking out here. A new patch came out on June 18th. So they are actively putting out the patches and updates already, even after only 1 month of the early access. Now let's get right into about this game. Hop on. We're leaving. Oh, This is giving me straight up vibes of getting the car losers. We're going, doing thing. Hop on, we're leaving, and your new life awaits. Paralives is a sandbox life simulation game with a great cast of townies to meet, as well as a vibrant open world town to explore and make your own. You will feel right at home should you choose to embark. What kind of life will you build? Whether you focus on your career, finding love, building a family, or becoming the richest person in town, the story is yours to write in Paralives. But twists and forks in the road await. What will you leave behind? Let's see, you live and then you die. At least do it in a nice house. Thanks to an ever evolving catalog of furniture, decor, and clutter objects, staging the perfect homes for your para folks will be a breeze. Resize, recolor, stack, and place items freely for a tactile building experience. Paralives allows truly gridless constructions with curved walls, split level floors, and more. Recreating your house or building an intricate 8-story mansion has never been this easy. Honestly, I feel like I would personally prefer, like I said, a pre-built house. But for people that do like this kind of customization, this is a lot to delve into. There are lives to create and stories to tell. Again, they're showing here from that second trailer, that 9-minute showcase of a day in the life of Paralives. You will be handed an advanced character creator called the Paramaker. Adjust the height of your parafolks, tweak a wide array of facial and bodily features, design stylish outfits, and create complex personalities. From head to toe, no small detail will be left out. They even go into some of the key features here. Explore an open world town filled with shops, parks, restaurants, and museums. Speaking of the museums, that does remind me. They do show in the trailers that you can donate things to the museum, and that comparison right there is kind of what led me to the Animal Crossing comparison. It might be it might be a little more goal oriented or day to day oriented than something like Animal Crossing, but the fact that they do have that kind of like collection completion as way to play in the game, that's another kind of thing that they have in there, just kind of adds a little bit to the depth. Create parafolks of all looks and styles, find a job and try out flexible career progression paths. And that's something else we do see in the trailer. After one of the showcase characters spends a day at their job, they do have the character having to choose something for a perk there, giving them like three options, two of which seem to have like income bonuses attached to them. Discover unique personality traits, skills, wants, needs, and emotions. Find love and make friends or enemies. Multi select parafolks and do anything as a group. Grow up, have children, live a long life. Enjoy the customization and flexibility of our house building tools. Experiment with our in game modding interface to edit or add content to the game. So, up front, and mind you, this is early access, and they even mentioned the Steam Workshop for modders in the showcase trailer. They want the community to be involved in expanding and creating content for the game. Now, in some cases, I could see this being a heavy criticism against the developers where they're basically trying to recruit their player base to fill the game full of content. But in a game like this, I can see it being an incredible bonus. The way that the modding communities for things like Stardew Valley or Elder Scrolls games is so robust and has added so much to the game that you can still 100% play a fully a completely fulfilling experience on the base game alone, but then players are like, you know what, I'd like to go ahead and see more of this. And if anybody has seen my modded Stardew gameplay, like you have an idea of what's going on there and how robust that can become. Find community made mods, houses, and parafolks through the Steam Workshop. Now, maybe again, this is something I would really like to know if there are prefabricated houses that you can just drop in, but if not, maybe the player community with the in-game made mods can go ahead and set that up. Of course, I would rely on somebody actually doing that because, frankly, I'm not much of a I'm not much of a mod maker myself, and somebody who does go and make those kinds of mods would be the same kind of people who are going to spend a lot of time actually making those things in the game in the first place. But those people do some incredible work for their gaming communities, which I highly respect. More features and content will be added during early access and after through exclusively free updates as we have pledged to our community. So they're telling us that, throughout the case and afterwards the updates are going to be free. Maybe they're not saying here whether they will or won't do some paid DLC, but it does seem like the kind of thing where I could easily see a game like this doing that. As an example, anybody who has looked at The Sims, anybody who has played or owns The Sims probably knows all about that paid DLC. But hopefully that something like this they stick to that free model. Not now, the developers do need to get paid for the work they do, obviously, but hopefully they do get enough going on with this stuff to go ahead and not have to rely on mountains and mountains of that kind of content creation. Now, to be added during the early access phase, they even have a list here of everything that they want to implement in the course of this time before a full release. Weather and seasons, dogs, cats, and horses. Now that's an interesting one. Horses. So having like a horse stable kind of thing, that's an interesting choice. Like dogs and cats, I understand as you're a dog person, you're a cat person, they're household pets. But horses, that's like a whole other tier of something to design for, I feel like, because you would have to kind of set up your property with a whole extra thing for that. Horses don't just live in the house with you. No, no, they don't. I was just thinking about it. I'm like, no, that would be really weird. And can horses be like paper trained or trained to use a litter box? I don't think so. Probably not. Cars and bikes. I could see that being kind of interesting. The size of the town, I'm not sure how much of the town really warrants car ownership. If the character is shown now, the character in the trailer is shown going from place to place like on foot, but I'm wondering like how much farther can the town go if they added something like cars, like maybe add jobs or things that they commute to out of town kind of thing. Boats and houseboats, that'd be a cool thing, kind of like in a little harbor there, have some houseboats. And combine that with the weather and seasons, you can kind of depict how a character may have to struggle with major storms coming through on a houseboat. Pools and swimming, calendar and organizing social events, story progression for NPCs, family tree, gardening and fishing, tools to edit and create towns. Oh, I was just talking about, the town itself being like this kind of self contained thing, but being able to edit and create whole new towns, that could be a whole extra thing to expand it. And I just mentioned my Stardew Valley mod kit, but currently I am running like one, two, three, four, at least four major mods in addition to like all the little quality of life stuff and small character mods, but like at least four or five that expand the base of Stardew and add whole extra towns complete with their own storylines and cast of characters. Seeing that like just promised right here on the store page has me even more hopeful for the future of this game. And more personality traits, wants, emotions, jobs, etc. So obviously, being an early access thing, I imagine maybe their character trees, like basically the way you would see skill trees in some standard RPGs. I could see that being very. They set up the skill tree to basically be exactly what you want to try and optimize your character with those skill choices. For this one, those traits, wants, emotions, jobs, those things are basically put into these skill trees, where it's again, like I said earlier, it's less about the optimization and more about progressing a person than it is trying to optimize a person. Although you could still try and min max your person. And honestly, the kind of player that I am, if I were to go and jump into something like this, I would probably try and find ways to min max that. So that's what they tell us up front about Paralives. So we have to get into our analysis of the game. Graphically, the game does look good. They give you a lot of customization options with the characters. They show the characters aging and growing with all of these different things going on. The houses are absolutely robust with how much you can pack into them, which I do also appreciate that they had that little collaboration with the developers of the game Unpacking, which again I did go and buy that game after I reviewed it. That's how impressed I was with that, and I played that, and it was a nice little experience. But seeing that put into this kind of 3D space that you can live and operate through in a way that I think might actually put The Sims to shame. Now, The Sims is also a much older game, but considering how much went into this, I can see that this is clearly kind of. It definitely came inspired by The Sims, the way that Stardew Valley was inspired by Harvest Moon, and kind of started from that baseline idea and ran with it. Graphically, I am definitely seeing that. The sound design here with a little bit of clicks and boops, but more so in the music, is it is relaxing, which is exactly the kind of setting that I would want to see for this. And on top of that, we go into the gameplay. Now, here's something about the gameplay. There are a lot of people out there who will not like this gameplay at all. They don't want to go and spend hours upon hours customizing everything about the characters, the houses. They might just want to grab some pre-made assets and jump right in. It looks like they do give that option for the characters, and I am hoping that either they have that option for the houses or that the community sets up to where they can go ahead and share their houses with the community, so that if you don't want to make it yourself, you can go ahead and be like, oh, this is a really cool thing, let me go ahead and snag this and put that in here. um Other aspects of the gameplay, I could see something like this. Now, I have seen a lot of little video clips and stuff where people were going and having fun with Tomodachi Life, and how showing how the characters interact in that, and kind of making like little sitcom like moments out of it. I could see people doing the exact same thing with Paralives. In fact, I'm kind of surprised that I haven't seen clips of it already. Maybe I'm just not in the right algorithm space, or maybe the player base is just more focused on other things. But I could see online content creators having that kind of creative fun with this game and how they set up their characters, even running like entire fan made sitcoms in their own right. Now, how much of this stuff is like maybe pre written, I don't know. But they have also kind of hinted that they, or not even hinted, but basically promised in the store description that all of those things, like the NPC interactions and the character progression, is also going to expand throughout early access. The UI and the menus, now, this is yet another thing that can become a very hit or miss point for these reviews in particular. The menus for the game, they do actually show us a fair amount of the user interface and the menus. There we do see stuff on the screen showing bars for like health, hunger. They show scores for your fitness. They show little cards on the screen for your mood and for how your interaction options may affect other characters. We do see over on the side of the trailer, if I can locate my mouse on the screen, there it is, with ideas. Looks like an inventory, interpersonal connection thing, a box for storage, exclamation point, and another person. That one's probably your own character profile. How sleepy are you? Do you need to go to the bathroom? Are you like, how clean are you? How hungry are you? They show all of this going into the screen. You can see all of that in the trailers, in the screenshots, and they even show just enough of the character creation so that you have an idea of what you're getting into. That is huge bonus points for how this game is being presented on the store page. And not only that, but huge points for the game itself, showing that their menus are laid out in a way that are easy to look at and easy to understand, I feel like even people who don't play a lot of video games are going to be able to look at that and understand what they're looking at. The symbols and the icons are pretty self-explanatory in a lot of them, as far as what most people would have in some kind of a pattern recognition, like a shower head for how clean you are. Like, when was the last time you took a shower? Anybody in the real world should also kind of know that, where it's like based on how you feel, or lift up your arm. You're like, oh boy, that which, by the way, guys, I did shower today. Don't worry. But all of that, the UI and the menus, they do look incredibly good for how they're laid out in the trailer, to where I can be confident in knowing, if I go and buy this game, exactly how it should look when I'm going in. Especially for games like this, where you have so many character interactions and so much potential inventory to manage, not so much in the sense of like a game where you have crafting and farming and stuff like that, but I'm sure like all of those books on the bookshelf there, I don't know like how many of them are hand-picked by the player either, but there's a lot of variety in there. Now, to get into the final part of this little review here is the pricing. At full price, Paralives is $40. Now, this game is in early access, and the developers clearly put a lot of love and care into this game. So for that, I respect it, and I believe that at full release, this game could absolutely be worth $40. In fact, based on what I'm seeing in the trailers, I could even imagine that $40 is still a fair price for this game based on the trailer. However, knowing that it is early access, and knowing that, scrolling back down here to the bottom of the description, knowing that a bunch of these features that are promised to be added during early access, which means they're not in the game now. Now, some things like, okay, maybe boats and houseboats. If the town was inland, boats and houseboats wouldn't even be a factor. But the fact that story progression for NPCs, calendar and socializing events, pools and swimming, weather and seasons, the fact that those aren't in there now, and the fact that, those are the kind of things I would think would be a part of the base. But of course, the systems can be a lot more intricate, and the story progression for NPCs. Okay, I do admit I did buy another early access game a little while ago. Anybody who's seen my Fields of Mystria series would know that, NPCs having very limited story progression in the early access is not necessarily a deal breaker for me. But at $40, I think it just might be. But again, this is just me. It does appear that the developers, like I said, are hard at work with getting this game where they want it to be for their community. So if you have the confidence in the developers to keep pushing and reach that full release, I could see the $40 being a worthwhile cost, knowing where this game is going to go. For me personally, though, that's a bit of a hard sell, knowing that some of those things are not yet in the game for $40. I could see maybe for 20 I could pick up something like this and give it a shot, and then kind of see where it goes and where it develops from there, exactly the way I'm doing with Fields of Mystria. And again, along with, if they have that option to go ahead and pick like some pre-built houses to move into, that would be another part of it. And with the unpacking collaboration, I could also, maybe that's like a part of it too. Maybe that's some of the pre-built houses that are a part of that. They don't have a whole lot on the front page here about the unpacking situation, although they do have, let's see, recent events and announcements. I'm sure that there's something in here about that, because that was very recent that came out. New patch notes. There it is. Better Steam Workshop tags for mods, modders, options menus. Then they even show the screenshots from unpacking in there. Bug fixes, performing interactions. So patch notes, bug fixes, all that kind of stuff. Tips for known issues. So they do have some stuff here where the community has reported issues. And in this stuff, they even have information for you so that you can look for those kinds of things. So they do have things up there to kind of help new players if you're struggling with certain issues or things like that. They do have information to go ahead and help you along the way, in addition to the work that they're already putting in. Because we did see that it was less than 2 weeks ago that they had a patch go in for a lot of stuff. So again, I personally think 40 is a bit much of an ask considering where we're at in early access, but I understand that the developers, they do also have bills to pay. They have people to feed in their lives. So I'm not saying that it's completely unreasonable. I would just say that for me personally, it's a bit of a hard ask. Like I said, I could see myself doing 20 for this. But for other people who are even more excited about this and seeing the possibilities unfold, I could say that, if you have the confidence that they are going to reach those promises and that you're not going to fall short of that, which, based on how much activity we're seeing in the community with as much as the game is sold already, I would be reasonably understanding of that confidence. So, that all said, we need to rate the game. Oh, before I do rate it, like I said, they do also have a lot of bundles for the game. In fact, just out of curiosity, let's go ahead and take a look at all four bundles possible. Like I said, they do have it packaged with unpacking, which I believe was $54 if I'm not mistaken for the original one. I had to go and copy the link for the page and look it up in a private browser that I wasn't logged into in order to get that price. Paralives and Outbound combined for $58, which, that's a little bit of a discount as well. Basically, any of the bundles are 10% off. Dwarf Fortress, now I could see Dwarf Fortress being an interesting way to like have two separate building games, but it's still a very different vibe. Same with House Flipper too. House Flipper feels more about like profiting off of the house flipping and house designing, whereas Paralives is a bit more interpersonal. Personally, I think Unpacking and Outbound might be closer to the vibe that Paralives is trying to promise here. But that said, we have to go ahead and finish up our review here. How well do I think the store page is selling this game? Honestly, I think the store page is doing an excellent job of presenting everything going in here. The organization of the trailers and the screenshots do a lot of heavy lifting to promote the game. Now, the first trailer and the last trailer are pretty similar in basically just being that 60 to 90-second trailer showcasing the premise and the mood of the game. But then the second trailer being, like I said, this almost 9-minute presentation where it's kind of like a day in the life of Let's Play style of the game, which for a game like this is incredibly welcome. Now, I know most people, when they're shopping for games, they probably don't necessarily want to have to be sold by a 10-minute trailer, which for games like God of War or Pokemon or stuff like that, those kinds of like extended gameplay things might not be the most exciting way to sell the game. You want to see the game, you want to see what it's promising, but a game like this, there are so many things to look into in the game and to consider when you're going through this process that I could see this kind of let's play style showcase of everything you have to offer. The fact that they can give you a bit more of a detailed showcase showing you the terraforming, the freaking gardening. You're setting grass and flowers in the yard to make your dream home. And honestly, what good is a video game? Like the fantasy life of a video game, if not for experiencing and appreciating the things that might be impossible for you to do in real life, like own a beautiful home. I know that sounded really sad. But anyway, like I said, I think that Paralives, just in the trailers alone, are doing an excellent job in showing the game. The descriptions down below do show a little bit more detail, or rather similar detail, just in the text form that you kind of expect for those blurbs, along with the appropriate graphics. And they even tell you right up front in there, without having to click through extra things, where they intend to go with the early access of the game. And honestly, I think that they do an excellent job of showing you where they're at, what they're currently doing, and where they're going with it, to the point that, like I said, I think that people who do have the budget, the time, and the confidence can go ahead and put down that $40 for the game and feel like they got their money's worth. Now, I think there has been a little bit of online discourse for like over the expense of the game in early access. And honestly, I understand that sentiment for early access because, like I said, I'm not necessarily sold on a $40 price tag. I do live on a budget myself. I have a job. I have limited time to do things. I know that, I have my daily videos going up on this very YouTube channel, but me setting those up is a matter of doing it in a way, like doing my recording sessions in a way where I don't really have to edit or change things along the way. That's kind of why my cozy game sequences are set up the way they are because of that lack of time, because this is not a full-time job for me. My actual full-time job where I've been picking up the overtime, which is why some of my other series have kind of fallen back a little bit. But, that's just kind of how things go with life. And the fact that something like this is the kind of game you could easily sink so much time into. If you're the kind of person that loves Tomodachi Life, Animal Crossing, The Sims, all those kinds of things, I could see this being the exact kind of game that would be up your valley. Now, did I just say up your valley? I did. This is what I get for not using a script. Up your alley. But anyway, I digress. So, an actual score for the game. I am going to rate Paralives on Steam for the Steam store page a solid 9 out of 10. Now, I could see it going to a perfect 10 if the price was a little bit more agreeable for me with my time and my budget, but other than that one complaint, the game itself and everything they show looks like they are promising a huge game with community focus that has so much possibility for the individual player, the content creator, and the community as a whole that can really give anybody that kind of experience that they appreciate. Now, I know that I did kind of start this with the Happy Pride Month thing, and the game itself does not seem to boast too much of that outside of the simple possibility of, you make your character, you play your character's life the way you want to, so then any romantic connections you make are going to be based on how you set your character to identify. So in that regard, I could see this being a very pride friendly game, like very identity affirming game in that sense, especially if you kind of make the character as kind of a screen proxy for yourself. If you are in that community where you you may not identify at like with whatever you were born with or whatever society thinks you should be, this is the kind of thing where I could see it being an outlet, possibly to the point of becoming an obsession, depending on how much somebody uses their electronic life to kind of cope with things. But at the same time, with the good moderation, it can be kind of therapeutic to just kind of see and live out a little bit of a fantasy experience, because ultimately gaming is a fantasy experience. And being able to just kind of go in and have this kind of simple but robust possibility for having a character live a life could be an incredible exploration, just to kind of have your own experience with the game, with the community. And I sincerely hope that this game's player base and community is as welcoming as the game looks like it can be. So that's my score here. I'm saying 9 out of 10 based on the Steam store page. Again, remember, this is a review of the store page, not necessarily a review of the game itself. I know I've been giving out some favorable scores for the store pages lately. That's because some of these store pages are just incredibly well put together, where I look at the page and I am confident that the developers of the game knew, like, they understood how to present their project to make it something that I would want, that not just I, but that people, that potential buyers would want to look at. And I do appreciate that the developers have put that care not only into the game itself based on the trailers, but in their presentation of it. Like I can just kind of get, especially from that, you know, almost 9-minute video, how much passion and care they have for their creation through that video and what they decided to show us. Uh, who would I recommend this to? Again, people who like the Tomodachi life, The Sims, Animal Crossing. I would say like give this a at least give it a look. Check out the trailers on the storm on the Steam pages. If you like the other kinds of like life sim games in what looks like a small town kind of living, give it a look. See if the $40 and judge for yourself if you think that $40 price tag would be worth it. If not, you can always wish list it and get a notification when it goes on sale. Keep an eye out for it if they have console releases as it approaches a full release kind of situation. And, just kind of, I would say, give it a chance, look at it. This might be something that flew under your radar. And again, the reason that this came across my radar was because of that Wholesome Direct, which honestly, the Wholesome Direct has apparently been a thing for at least a few years that I didn't know about until this year. So seeing this up and running gives me some good hope for the community and the developers that care this much about their product. Now, what would raise my score? I would say that if the game was at full release and they had like everything that they said they're working on throughout early access, if those things were in there, I would think maybe 10 out of 10. Or if it was on full release and all that stuff was there, then I'd probably lean on a 10 out of 10 here. But as it stands, like for where they're currently at in early access, the 40 is kind of a hard sell for myself personally and my budget. That might be, and I know early access turns other people off from games since there's never really a guarantee of a full release of the game. Especially when something came out in early access this recently. We don't know if the developers are necessarily like working on like if the developers are continuously working on it, or if they basically just decided, hey, we're going to put it on the store in early access just so that we can get some money for all the work we've already done and then just kind of shelf it. Like, you never really have that guarantee with it, but based on the communication that we've seen on the Steam store page and how the developers already have patches and stuff going, I do have that confidence that they really want to push for that full release. Now, remember, everything I've said here, they are purely my own opinions. I did not get these thoughts from the wider community. I know I said that I've seen a little bit of discourse on the game and some criticism over the early access pricing, but based on what I'm seeing here, I think that for the people that want that early adopter status to this, the $40 look like it could be justified. It's just not something that I would jump into. These are my opinions. I know we've all got our own different tastes and thoughts when it comes to the entertainment media that we consume. And if anybody does have some different opinions, or if you've got something to point out that I potentially missed, the comments are right down there. You can agree, disagree, you can berate me, you can troll me down there, whatever you like. It's a free comment section. And for those of you who have, especially for those of you who have purchased this game already, I'd like to know like what you guys think of your experience with Paralives so far. Honestly, this does look like the kind of thing that I would actually not mind looking at. And if I do find myself with the time, I may see about, checking out some content creators or something that have jumped into this early, because it does look like something where a well fostered community could really benefit from a game like this in the like in connecting with people. Now I know the game is about connections with these virtual avatars of CPU people using algorithms, but games like this can often bring people together even out of the single player game experience with just relating how they like certain characters, how they like the setting, the environment, the themes. And this is the kind of game where the setting and the themes can really bring those people together in that kind of environment. And that it's a little hard to put into words, but I think if you've listened this far into my review, I think you get the idea. Anyway, that has been my review for Paralives. Now, next weekend is July 4th, which for my international audience probably doesn't mean shit. However, for the United States, that is basically America's happy birthday, where, yada yada, America, fuck yeah, democracy, and all that stuff. So be sure to check out next week, where we will be going in for a fun time to say happy 4th of July to the country. Just you wait. It's going to be good.